Picture a sun-scorched training range where the best sharpshooters in the world, Navy SEAL snipers, grapple with a target that mocks their precision, their confidence crumbling under the weight of failure. Then, from the sidelines, an old man, with weathered hands and a quiet gaze, steps forward, his rifle steady as a rock, delivering a shot that silences the doubters and ignites a story of hidden mastery. This is the tale of Henry "Hank" Larson, a forgotten marksman whose past holds secrets that will transform a team and pull you into an emotional journey of respect and redemption. The training range at Coronado Naval Base stretched out under a relentless California sun, the air shimmering with heat, the scent of salt from the Pacific mingling with the sharp tang of gun oil and scorched earth. It was early June 2025, and the SEAL Team 9 snipers, elite marksmen honed by years of combat, gathered for a high-stakes exercise. The target was a mock insurgent, a silhouette 200 yards away, perched on a ridge obscured by heat haze and a fickle crosswind that shifted like a living thing. The team, led by Chief Petty Officer Jake Torres, stood tall in their camo gear, rifles gleaming, Remington M40s and custom Barretts, tools of precision forged in war zones from Afghanistan to Syria. Torres, 34, with a scar tracing his jaw from a Kabul firefight, adjusted his scope, his dark eyes narrowed in focus. Beside him, Petty Officer Sam Carter, 29, a lanky Texan with a cocky grin, muttered, "Piece of cake," while Petty Officer Mia Delgado, 31, a former Olympic shooter, checked her wind gauge with a surgeon's calm. The exercise was a test of their edge, a chance to prove their mettle after a recent mission where a missed shot had cost lives. But, as shot after shot rang out, crack, 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 the target remained untouched, bullets kicking up dust short or wide, the wind mocking their calculations. Frustration simmered, tempers flared, and then, from the edge of the range, an old man in a faded ball cap and a worn flannel shirt stepped into view, his presence a quiet ripple in their storm. Henry "Hank" Larson was 78, his frame stooped but wiry, his hands gnarled like old oak branches, marked by decades of hard work and harder battles. His blue eyes, faded but piercing, held a lifetime of focus, and his gait carried the slow confidence of someone who'd seen more than he let on. He'd arrived at Coronado that morning, a guest of the base commander, Admiral Hargrove, who'd known him from a distant past. Hank carried a battered rifle case, its leather cracked and stained, and a canvas bag slung over his shoulder, his only luggage for a journey sparked by a letter from Hargrove. "We need your wisdom, old friend." The SEALs barely noticed him at first, dismissing him as a civilian observer, maybe a veteran for a morale boost. Torres shot him a glance, his voice gruff. "Stay back, sir. This is live fire." But Hank just nodded, his lips twitching into a faint smile, and settled onto a bench watching their struggle with an air of patient amusement. As the misses piled up, Carter cursing, Delgado recalibrating, Torres slamming a fist on the sandbag rest, Hank stood, his movements deliberate, and approached. "Mind if I try?" he asked, his voice raspy but steady. The team laughed, a nervous edge to it, but Torres, out of options, shrugged. "Knock yourself out, old-timer." What followed would rewrite their assumptions, pulling them into a story of mastery born from a past they couldn't imagine. Hank's life had been carved from the rugged landscapes of Montana, where the smell of pine and the crack of a .22 rifle defined his youth. Born in 1947, he grew up on a cattle ranch, his father a World War II sniper who taught him to read wind and distance with a glance. Their evenings spent sighting targets on distant hills, the air crisp with the scent of sagebrush. By 17, Hank was a prodigy, his shots landing with uncanny precision, earning him a spot in the Army's marksmanship program during the Vietnam War. Stationed in the Central Highlands, he became a sniper with the 101st Airborne, his M21 rifle, a constant companion through jungles thick with leeches and ambushes. His record was legendary, 47 confirmed kills, each a calculated act to protect his unit, each a weight he carried silently. A near-fatal shot to his shoulder in 1969 ended his combat days, the scar a permanent knot under his flannel, but his skill never faded. After the war, he returned to Montana, working as a ranch hand and gunsmith, his hands crafting rifles for hunters while he trained a few select students, his name whispered in shooting circles but never shouted. Marriage and a daughter brought joy, but her death in a car accident 20 years ago, followed by his wife's passing from grief, left him alone, his ranch sold, his life distilled to a small cabin and memories. Hargrove, a young lieutenant in Vietnam who'd seen Hank's skill firsthand, had tracked him down, urging him to share his gift with a new generation. That letter, found amid dust-covered books, had brought him to Coronado, his rifle case a relic of a life he thought was over. The range grew quiet as Hank unpacked his rifle, a custom Springfield M1A, its stock worn smooth by his hands, its barrel etched with faint initials from long-dead comrades. The SEALs watched, skeptical, as he loaded a single round, his movements slow but fluid, like a ritual honed by decades. He settled into a prone position, his elbows sinking into the sand, his breath steady despite the heat. Torres muttered to Carter, "This'll be a waste of ammo," but Delgado shushed him, her eyes narrowing with curiosity. Hank adjusted the scope, a relic with no digital bells, just glass and instinct, then waited, his gaze tracking the wind's dance across the range. The team had misjudged it, their high-tech gear overwhelmed by the unpredictable gusts, but Hank seemed to feel it, his body swaying slightly as if in tune with nature. He exhaled, his finger tightening on the trigger, and the shot rang out. Crack, a clean, sharp sound that cut through the tension. The target silhouette jerked, a perfect headshot, the paper torn clean at 1,200 yards. The SEALs froze. Mouths. Agape. As Hank lowered the rifle, his face impassive but his eyes twinkling with a quiet triumph. "Wind's your enemy," he said, his voice a low drawl. "Learn to dance with it." The silence shattered into cheers, but the real lesson was just beginning. Torres approached, his scar seeming to deepen with his frown. "How'd you do that?" he demanded, his tone a mix of awe and challenge. Hank gestured to the range. "Show me your setup." Over the next hour, he walked them through it, adjusting their scopes for parallax, teaching them to read mirage lines in the heat haze, explaining how to anticipate wind shifts by watching grass and dust. His hands, though trembling with age, moved with a craftsman's precision, guiding Delgado's barrel, steadying Carter's grip, recalibrating Torres's zero. "It's not just the gear," he said, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "It's the feel, years of feel." The team fired again, and this time the shots landed true. Torres' bullet grazing the target's chest, Carter's splitting its shoulder, Delgado's piercing its heart. They whooped, slapping Hank's back, their respect shifting from grudging to genuine. But beneath the victory, Hank's eyes held a shadow, a memory of Vietnam where every shot had a cost, a truth he'd share only when ready. That night, in the base's rec room, the air thick with the smell of coffee and stale beer, the SEALs pressed Hank for stories. He sat in a worn armchair, his rifle case at his feet, and began, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "My first kill was a North Vietnamese officer," he said, his hands tracing the rifle's stock. "Saved my platoon, but I saw his face. Young, scared, like me. Every shot after, I carried that." He spoke of nights in the jungle, the weight of a scope against his cheek, the way he'd hum old country tunes to steady his nerves. Torres listened, his own scars seeming to ache with memory, while Delgado nodded, her Olympic precision mirroring Hank's instinct. Carter, usually brash, sat silent, absorbing the lesson of a man who'd turned survival into art. Hank revealed his shoulder wound, pulling back his sleeve to show the puckered scar, a memento of a bullet that ended his war but not his skill. "I taught my daughter to shoot," he added, his voice breaking. "She was better than me, until that drunk driver took her." The room grew heavy, the SEALs' laughter fading into a shared silence, a bond forming over loss and resilience. The next day, the training intensified, Hank now a fixture on the range. He drilled them on long-range shots, teaching wind calls with a pocket anemometer he'd carved from wood, its dials worn but accurate. He shared tricks, using a blade of grass to gauge breeze, adjusting for Coriolis effect at extreme distances, skills, honed in Vietnam's unpredictable terrain. The SEALs improved, their hit rate climbing from 60% to 90%, their confidence restored. But Hank pushed further, setting up a moving target, a drone mimicking an escaping insurgent. The team struggled, bullets trailing the drone's erratic path until Hank took the shot again. Crack, a single round dropping at mid-flight. "Anticipate," he said, his grin faint but proud. The exercise ended with a mock mission, the SEALs clearing a simulated village, their shots precise thanks to Hank's guidance. Afterward, Torres saluted him, a rare gesture. "You're one of us now, sir." Hank nodded, his eyes misty, the weight of his past easing with each lesson shared. Back at his cabin in Montana, weeks later, Hank received a package. Photos from the range, the SEALs with their arms around him, a certificate naming him an honorary SEAL instructor, signed by Hargrove. The scent of pine drifted through his open window, the silence a comfort after Coronado's chaos. He hung the certificate beside a faded photo of his daughter, her rifle raised in triumph at a youth competition, her smile a mirror of his own. Letters arrived, too. Torres thanking him for saving their edge, Delgado sending a wind gauge she'd customized, Carter promising to visit with a bottle of whiskey. Hank smiled, his hands tracing the rifle case, its leather a link to a life reborn. He began writing a memoir, his pen scratching out tales of Vietnam, of his daughter, of the SEALs who'd given him purpose. The cabin filled with warmth, visitors, local, vets, curious kids, gathering to hear him, his voice a bridge between past and present. But Hank's story held a deeper layer, a vow tied to his daughter that had driven him to Coronado. Before her death, she'd begged him to teach others, to pass on the skill that had kept him alive. "Don't let it die with me, Dad," she'd whispered, her voice weak in a hospital room scented with antiseptic. That promise had haunted him, his isolation a shield against pain, until Hargrove's letter broke through. In Coronado, every shot he took was for her, every lesson a fulfillment of her wish. The SEALs sensed it, their respect deepening as they learned of her loss, their own losses, friends in combat, echoing his. One night, under the Montana stars, Hank burned her final letter, its ashes rising like a release, his heart lighter, her legacy alive in the men he'd shaped. The SEALs returned to combat, their precision saving lives in a raid on a Syrian compound, a mission debrief citing Larson's techniques as key. Hank watched the news, pride swelling, his cabin a hub of stories and laughter. His memoir, published locally, sold out, its pages a testament to a man who'd turned failure into triumph. At a Veterans Day ceremony, Torres and Delgado flew him. To Coronado, the team presenting him with a custom rifle, his M1A's successor engraved with Hank's anchor. The crowd cheered, but Hank's eyes were on the sky, where he imagined his daughter smiling, her vow kept. The story closed on a heartwarming note, bittersweet with loss but radiant with redemption, a legacy of skill and love that endured. But there's more to Hank's tale, a hidden sacrifice that waits to pull you deeper into his quiet heroism.